Now, we are now officially live streaming for the first time in Cumbria, Northumberland, Tyne and we at NHS Foundation Trust. We're live streaming our board meeting in public, which is the first time that we've done that. We have got members of the public sat in the room. I've just introduced my staff to them, and most of them knows anyway. But what I'm going to do for the purposes of introducing the people online, and we can't see, again, for anyone who is watching online, we can't see you, you're watching us, and unfortunately the technology doesn't allow interaction either, so you are simply watching this board meeting happen in public. So for anyone who is out there in cyberspace, you're very welcome, and I'll go around the table for people to introduce themselves. The other thing I will say just before we start, just to remind people, we are in person, and so just in terms of comments, questions, etc., we just need to be mindful of that because we have got a general election that's being held. So we just need to remember that as well. But hopefully that won't stifle discussions. But hopefully it's all certainly not. So I'm Darren Best, and I am the chair of the Council of Governors and Board of Directors here at CNTW, and I'll be chairing the meeting this afternoon as we go through the agenda. And I will go around to my left.
James Duggan, Chief Executive.
Hi, I'm Vic Aspinwall, a Non-Exec Director.
Hi, I'm Michael Robinson, I'm a Non-Executive Director too.
Lynn Shaw, Director of Workforce and Audit.
Hi, Kevin Scully, Finance Director.
Hi, Kirsty Allen, Corporate Governance Manager.
Hi, Kelly Jackman from Communications.
Everyone, I'm Louise Nelson, a Non-Executive Director. What do Good Chief Operating Officer.
Paula Breen, Non-Executive Director.
Hi, I'm Rachel Bourne, one of the Non-Executive Directors.
Good afternoon, Dr. Rajesh Kazi, Medical Director and Deputy Chief Executive.
And apologies today from Debbie Henderson, it's our Corporate Communications Director, David Arthur, and our non-exec directors, Brendan Hill, also non-exec director, and Sarah Bushbrook, who's our Director of Nursing. And we do have one person in the room who's going to be presenting. Can I see her introduce herself?
Hi, I'm Kim Carter. I'm the Acting Head of Workforce Development.
Thank you. Any other apologies for absence that I missed? We do have, again, various people in the room who are, some of them which are governors, some are members of the public, but they've all got an interest in CNTW and they're here to observe the singers online. Any declarations of interest?
I forgot to say when the forms came round that my brother-in-law is a psychologist. So that's you know.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. Right, in that case, I'm going to go to the minutes of the last board meeting we had on the 6th of March. I normally in those sessions I wouldn't go through them page by page, but because we are in public, I will go through page by page for any matters of accuracy. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11. So we're happy to accept those as a true record of the meeting from March of this year. Yeah. Okay. In that case, I'm now going to turn us to 1.4 of the agenda, which is our action log. There's only one action here that's highlighted, which is around a digital innovation update to be provided at a future meeting. And it was agreed that we would undertake that in February of next year. So that's some distance off, but we've noted it ready for that meeting in 2025. Anything else on the action logs from anyone? Okay, in which case I'm going to take us to the items that sit under our strategic ambition 1, which is providing quality care every day. And the first report that we have there is from our chair of the Quality Performance Committee, Louise Nelson.
Thank you, Chair. As you can see, we have a full agenda looking at all of the quality and safety issues. We have a focus group which is really helpful in giving us a deep dive into anything that we're particularly concerned about. I don't have any real concerns. We did talk about the safety staffing report, and that comes up in our agenda today. There's nothing else to report.
The reasons, members have got the reasons about me. Any questions for Louise? No. Okay, so we'll move us on to item 2.2, which is Michael Robinson, also the non-exec director for the Mental Health Legislation Committee.
Thanks, Andy. We met on the 8th of May, and I think there's a copy of our report in the board papers. I think things I would draw attention to are that we looked at question whether there were increased rates of detention in North Cumbria based on this information that had been provided. That's prompted us to have a look at detention rates across and see if there's trends in relation to those. So that's an ongoing piece of work. We're also looking at reviewing the ethnicity of people who are detained under the Mental Health Act in our care. We're required by law data, and we're looking at how we collect that and how we utilise that going forwards. The big area of discussion was all around our panel membership. Our panel is individuals to whom we delegate our rights to review of the Mental Health Act into detention and other areas. The panel has 47 members at the moment. We're looking at ways to increase those numbers and also to increase representation for minority groups there. We've made approaches to a number of community groups, ongoing discussions with a number of individuals that hopefully be able to bring some people from ethnic minority groups onto the future. Those are the main points I have in relation to what we discussed.
Questions for Michael on Mental Health Legislation? Okay. That case, I'll move on to item 2.3 in the same section, and again, just by way of explanation for everyone who's not been in a CMTW board meeting or witness one, is that we have an overall performance document that we call the integrated performance report, PR for short. And what we choose to do in terms of going through the agenda is we split that single report into the relevant section that we're talking about. So at the moment we're talking about quality care every day, and that integrated performance report is effectively broken down into what we're doing around our commitments to care, to service users, our people, quality care, person-led care, and sustainability. So at this particular point, we're looking at the integrated performance report in the context of quality care every day, which would normally be called by Sarah Rushbrook, our Director of Nursing Home Institute. Apologies.
So thank you, Chair. So with regards to the metrics which are in front of you, I think the first thing to say is that the three areas which we are actively looking at is one is about restrictive practices. The second one relates to violence towards staff and our patients. And the third is about how we really look at people's rights when they're detained, which is a new metric we've added. Clearly, there's a piece of work going on still around restrictive practices. We know that we've got really good assurance systems and how we look at long-term segregation and prolonged seclusion. But still, we need to go a bit further in relation to what we can actually do to reduce our mechanical restraints and some of our approaches like growth restraints. That is going to be part of our new learning priority, which is called as VISA. So plans will come to the board over the next few months as to how we're going to achieve that. And the final thing to say is we have done a huge piece of work, as the board is aware, in relation to violence. And at the moment, the Chief Operating Officer is leading a specific piece of work, looking at all the determinants, how we can support staff, how we understand our patients better, support them, the families, and to ensure that this keeps on reducing and to provide safe services as much as we expect it to provide. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from anybody? I think as Rajesh has pointed out, our desired trajectory is to be reducing the number of restricted practices that we use, and trying to move as quickly and as safely as we can to reduce things more. We need to find the right balance between quality care, patient safety and staff safety as well. And finding that's a balance that we need to continue to try to find. But, thank you. Okay, I'm now going to move us on to the third part of the agenda, which is our strategic ambition 2, which is around person-led care, where and when it's needed. And again, here we start with the integrated performance report for that element. Over to yourself, Ramona.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of things to pick up at the outset in terms of the cover sheet. So board members will be cited on this is going into a new year, and some of the measures that we have changed, added or indeed replaced to make sure that the performance report reflects those areas of our key areas of focus from a quality perspective. In the context of person-led care, just a couple of things to pick up for the board. Continue to be in a really strong position around our out-of-area placement bed days. And we have maintained that position since December last year. We've also seen improvements around our psychiatric liaison performance within our emergency departments across the patch, both within the 1 hour and 24 hour, which I think is really positive given where we've previously been. You'll also see included in this section of the report, we are including the national measure over 4-week waits for access to care and treatment. That's a real challenge for us. It came introduced last summer, and we have integrated that into the performance report to make sure that the work that we're doing around our community transformation and our model of care reflects how we've got that focus on performance. And you'll see the trajectories that we've put in place between now and the rest of this year in terms of our focus on improvement. And I'll happily take any questions on any of the detail. Thank you.
Thanks. Any questions or comments for Ramona or on that section of it?
It's not really on this section of the report. It's we don't have a particular report today on the user service user and care experience, but I think it's just something here for us to look at. So we've introduced a new model for ascertaining people's experience in our services, and we're seeing quite a dip in terms of delivery. So we're now running at 81.2%. It's a drop from 84% last week. Now that could be because we've introduced a new system, and we do know that we're getting less at the moment, that there are less people coming through, so we're getting less records. I think that's something we're going to have to keep a real eye on. And the biggest drop off in our community services, I think it's something we need to be aware of, and we just need to make sure that we're understanding what's the real reasons underneath that, and B, as we're working through the transformation of our community services, we've seen it.
Further comments or questions? In which case, I'm going to move us on again to section 4 of the agenda, which is around our strategic ambition number 3, which is that CMTW is a great place to work. And we start with the People Committee Assurance Report. Brendan Hill's given apologies about said, so I'm going to check this through.
So thank you. So the People Committee meets quarterly, and the last meeting being the 1st of May. There are 12 papers discussed plus a presentation on that day, and I'm not going to go into any detail on any of them, but just wanted to raise to the board the training review which has been undertaken for the last 3 or 4 months. We have had a task and change group doing a very detailed piece of work on our training prioritisation, our training needs analysis for staff, and that's now concluded, and we had quite a conversation at the People Committee on that. It will be reflected in the debate performance report, which I'll talk about later, but I just wanted to bring this here because it's a closed up piece of work now. And the other area I was going to mention was the review of staffing solutions, which is our temporary staff bank. This review's been going on for a number of months. It's not quite finalised yet, but one of our directors came to give us an update on that. And there's clearly been some progress in a lot of the areas.
And we just look forward to the final review when that comes through. The only other thing I was going to raise is, as well as the quarterly meetings, we have agreed that we're going to have 2 workshops every year with a deep dive into certain topics. We have arranged those for this year, one in June and one in November, and it's an opportunity to really look into some of the areas that we don't have an opportunity to do at the People Committee in a little bit more detail. So our next one is about retention and employee relations at the end of June. But I'm happy to take any comments on it.
Questions or comments on the People's Committee? And again, for anyone who's not been in a CMT meeting before, we do businesses that we have committees at the board from even now putting in performance, not legislation, and now People Committee. And those committees are effectively charged with doing the business of the board within those committees and then elevating things to the board by exception that need to be for information, assurance, questioning, all those things. The only thing for me is, can we circulate those dates for board members in terms of those deep dives?
Yes.
For the people that have the opportunity to get involved, should they be available. Okay, 4.2, safer staffing report. Again, that was for Sarah.
I'll take that. Yes, thank you, Chair. So this is one of our requirements to support the report on it, especially in relation to our inpatient services. And I think the highlights I would like to sort of bring out of it is that there is an issue we have across some of our wards looking at the experience of our nursing leadership, and we are actively working with that. It is a bit of how we support our receptors, how we've increased our workforce with regards to people coming internationally and so on. The second point to say is that there are certain services where the complexity of presentations, whether it's a combination of physical health issues, whether it is how people manage to deal with their conditions in an inpatient setting, does put pressures on our, especially on our nursing element of our staffing, and that is also been specifically kind of looked at. We are quite unique in some ways that even though we are a mental health and disability organisation, we also have services which predominantly deal with physical health in Walkergate Park, and those with, the rehabilitation aspects of people having head injuries and so on. And again, that is a very specific, different workforce, which brings strengths, but also its challenges. And the final bit to say is that we've got some standalone units, which has got its own workforce pressures, because you can't have the support which you usually have on other services. What I would like to say to the board, almost all those areas, there are very specific actions happening, whether they are at ward level, whether they are at the site level, or whether they are at group level, to manage all the issues I've raised. And I think what has also become quite useful is our recent reorganization of our services, where all the inpatient services now are part of one care group, and also all our inpatient services, which are more specialist, are part of our specialist care group, which have got that scrutiny. Final point to make is that there are some pressures where some areas where there is vacancy pressures, and especially in our secure service areas, they're also being managed and dealt with. Don't have anything else to add. Happy to take any questions.
Please, Michael.
Yeah, so I think this report really reflects a much more clear understanding of what we should have, what tools we should be using, and having professional judgment outcomes to determine what we need. I think one of the things that we maybe need to consider, we talk about the workforce being inexperienced and also how much capacity there is for supervision. And we talk about preceptorship, but one of the things we've not really mentioned in here is our students that are coming from different higher education institutes and how much supervision they need to actually, while they're students still. And I think we need to recognise that, because that has an impact on how many students can be taken from any area. And also we need to think about how we reflect and develop our relationship with those higher education institutes, so that they could perhaps do some of that supervision in place.
No, no, totally agree, and I think this is just not just a suggestion and challenge with the nursing workforce, but it also with the medical workforce, given that we've got probably a doubling of medical students now coming through in the next few years, including certainty of University College London, Imperial College London, having medical students coming through in Cumbria. So I think that suggestion which Louise has made was that what goes on this.
And if Sarah was here, she'd tell us not to forget the AHP.
I think you're right to draw the point. It's about the nuances, isn't it? It's not just about numbers. It's about what the actual people are able to do at any given time, and the amount of extra support that other people then need to be able to make. And that means it's like Michael.
Thanks, John. Just a couple of questions. Really. The restructuring we went through recently, does that assist in relation to the flow of people between generally sort of working together? And the second, I suppose, is on this flow of people from preceptorship and band 5 to community potentially. Are there tools available to us to sort of maybe change the understanding of when people move, or the expectation that we have to stay within a ward environment for longer?
The first question I'll ask a moment to answer. And the second question, which is very specific, I don't have the answer to that one, so I don't know if any of my colleagues have, but if not, then we sort of find out and respond back to the board to this one.
So one thing we were doing is we had incentives in place for people to work in inpatient wards, and that has that causes all sorts of dysfunctions as well. And we were finding that increasingly in terms of getting staff right across the organisation, and in terms of a feeling of fairness across the organisation, that was causing a real problem as well. So we have removed that. I think this is something that will balance out over time. I also think question of experience and where experience nurses go. If we get the support right at a good level, we get the support right with the people who are going through, then people will want to stay. I think if we give up, if we say that wards are unsafe areas or wards are difficult places to work, then people will move. That's not the answer, is it? We're trying to create good, safe, therapeutic environments. And personally, while I think it's a short-term challenge around the fact that we have got a number of inexperienced or our nursing workforce has changed quite a lot over the last 3 years, and that's a good thing. Because the worry we were talking about pre-COVID is all of our experienced nurses on the lead. We're sort of in the middle of that process now, so I would say there's an opportunity for us at this point.
Just adding to that and answer your first question, it also directly links to where we're at with our workforce plan, because what we should be really looking at is the model of care that we're aspiring to get to in the context, particularly of cancer services. What does that mean for our new preceptorships coming through from a nursing perspective? How do we make sure we've got the right competency framework in place for that? So there's quite a significant amount of work taking place on that in the background. Second point, in terms of the configuration of the current inpatient care group, has that made it easier for staff to move between wards and services? Yes. Has that made it really clear about looking at the real variances we have at a shift level, what an enhanced NVT offer looks like, how we get consistency from an acute pathway perspective, rehab and other people? Absolutely, yes. And it's already, I think, taken us to a much better place around looking at the broader collective clinical resources that we have within sites and not just individual wards. So that was a long way of saying yes, but it's a really important question because it was a key driver in the changes that we've made.
Oh yes, it is. There's a reference to the problem with mixed wards creating risks relating to sexual safety. I guess I was just wondering, are sexual safety incidents happening, and are they being reported through the IPR in terms of assaults on patients, or it was just the first place I'd seen a reference to sexual safety incidents in Tyne? I was just wondering if anyone could elaborate on that.
My favourite suggestion I want to add is it's a really important question. So couple of things on sexual safety. So we already look at all sexual safety related incidents through the trust-wide safety group. So where we have incidents around sexual safety, where we sit with the national programme of work around sexual safety as well, how we're performing against that. We take that through the trust-wide safety group. Have we had incidents of sexual safety and our sex wars? Yes, we have. And we investigate those through the trust-wide safety group. One of the other things to mention in the context of the inpatient transformation work that we're looking at is actually what's our medium-term plan for our mixed sex wards, and I think we'll have some proposals this year and next year going into that in terms of how we reconfigure those going forward from a mixed sex perspective.
Any further questions or comments on the same staffing? So we'll move on to 4.3, quality elevation inclusion report.
Thanks, Chair. So this report is an annual report which fulfils our statutory requirements under the Equalities Act, where we have specific duties to publish equality objectives and information to demonstrate compliance with the public sector equality duty. There's quite a lot of detail within the report. I just wanted to pick out a few things, if I may. It highlights the initiatives and the events that we've carried out this year. So there is a lot in there in terms of our staff networks. Of particular note, the launch of our cultural diversity events, which have been a really, really positive thing across the organisation and received well by both our staff and our service users, who've been given the opportunity to celebrate diversity in terms of cuisine, dress, music, etc., all at ward level. The Culture Lab, which has been created by staff, which provides information from different countries our staff come from, and extremely popular lunch and learn sessions arranged by the Disability Staff Network. There was a lot of further information about the staff network work within the paper. I just wanted to raise to the board in terms of the staff network, we've recently re-established the Armed Forces and Veterans Association as a formal staff network to comply with our veteran aware re-accreditation application. We're waiting for an outcome on that. The report also details our latest workforce race equality standard and workforce disability equality standard data from March 23. We have new data which hasn't yet been published for this year. It also highlights our gender pay gap report for 22-23, which has seen a year-on-year reduction over recent years. And finally, the report highlights the 3 key ADI objectives which were approved by the board in November. Those being addressing progression within the trust for staff with protected characteristics, giving particular attention to our culturally diverse workforce, actions to eliminate any form of bullying, harassment and physical violence at work, and a baseline assessment how we will engage with our ethnic minority communities in line with the patient care and race equality framework. Happy to take any questions.
Comment from any welcome the veterans group being formally re-established as a network. That's a correction. Thank you for that.
Yes, just a couple of comments. So one comment on the veterans and our forces network is it does have a different, it isn't a protected characteristic, but it does have a different standing from the other ones. So it's important to recognise that. And then talk about our application for our gold ward, that would be real ward, the gold ward. And if you come back to very positive around that, I'm sure there's some notification that's to look at. But I guess just to pick out a couple of things in this report, I'd just like to say that the cultural celebration events have been absolutely fantastic, a really good idea, and really well received. I know, and Emma was sitting there. She was very instrumental in taking it forward and the spreading. So I'm at one at Beckfield, and then a few weeks time I'm really looking forward to that. But they have spread around the organisation, so that's a really positive thing. The other thing I'd highlight is the lunch and learn sessions that the Disability Network have put on, and they've been absolutely brilliant, and some really inspirational speakers in those. So if you do get a chance, join some of them because they are really
I think, yeah, probably just given that we're on this item and it's the first time we've actually just put on record our thanks and appreciation of all of the staff networks actually making it back from the board to working more closely with them in the coming months and years. And actually, every board member sat on this table saying for the coming years objective will have an EDI objective. Used probably linked to the committees or boards or the different roles that they have. But it's a really important area for us that we support and we develop activity around equal family.
So the original one that we want to highlight is movements this year in areas like people being subject, differences in people being subject to disciplinary processes and successfully shortlist to James it's still not where we want to be. So this is something we need to pay attention to. We do have and continue to ask ourselves the question of why that is. And we could ask questions about the data, how we get the data right. But it's I don't think we can accept at all the position we're in now.
Just a question, Nick. On appendices 1, we've got a band 1 member of staff. What role would that be?
I mean, the answer's sitting behind me, but we have some job carves. So people who are not doing full job roles because the band 1 closed a couple of years ago.
That's why I asked.
So it may be, I don't know the detail of the individual, which I can come back to you on, but it'll be somebody that's doing some elements of an admin role more likely to be.
Thank you. Moves on to 4.4, which is raising concerns report. And again, with your
Thank you. So this is the biannual report for the period 1st of October to the 31st of March 2024. Over this period, 60 concerns have been raised internally and 2 whistleblown cases received via the CQC. This total is increased on the previous period. The safety themes have reduced this period, but there continues to be a theme around behaviours, predominantly linked to the behaviour of management, which is a new theme for this report. The report then goes into some of the things that we are doing to address the themes that are coming out in the report, which I won't go into detail for the purposes of the meeting. The other key theme is policies and procedures, mainly linked to employee relations processes. So, for example, if there's a restriction on an individual because of a disciplinary process, we do know we've got more work to do in this area in terms of the application of policies, and that's something that's on the annual plan as one of our real key priorities for this year. Training's being rolled out currently for fact finds, investigations and hearings, but there's a programme of work which we'll look at to address some of the themes that have come out of the report. In terms of the cases, a large proportion of our cases come from community services. The Free to Speak Up Guardians have also noted an increasing trend in North Cumbria, and we're working closely with them to look into those details further. And the Guardians have also indicated a greater number of people wishing to raise their concerns confidentially, but again, it's something that we're working to look at. And we're going to explore this further, both with Trustee Bishop Forum and with the Guardians. That's what we're doing.
Thanks. Any questions or comments, Michael?
I just wondered if there was any experience in the wider NHS that trusted that the whistleblowing hotlines which are entirely independent of the organisation?
Yes, some organisations have truly independent Free to Speak Up Guardians, including one of our local trusts. So we're going down that route, having had internal people. We haven't explored that yet. I wouldn't say that we wouldn't at some point, but we always felt as though it was good to keep internal. But yes, so when you just around place, that's our chair. So I am aware that that has been the case. Whether this seeing any increase in people coming to them, I'm not aware of that. But what we do know is that organisations that have got a lot of time, so some more venues because they've got full-time police pick-up guardians. The number of cases tends to be slightly higher than it's a more usual time, but yeah.
So I think, you know, we've got to keep this under review and make sure that it brings, you know, guardianship is doing the work that it's intended to do. So we just have a discussion about this about the week. I can see the attraction of having an independent whistleblower. Well, I'm not sure it's a route we want to go down, because one of the real advantages of having, well, certainly around previous speak-up guardians, to have the relationships within the organisation, and also to be able to resolve things and be able to have a relationship with management as well. So I'd be concerned about that going through almost having a more formal processes around it rather than looking at how we resolve that. So,
I think my experience is maybe that it is the nature, maybe
yes, that's my concern. Exactly. Yes, that you on the one level, that's great, isn't it? Because you've got entirely independence, but they can just add to a whole new process with some potentially dysfunctional outcomes.
Just to also to add, Michael, we have around about 120 free speak-up champions across the organisation. And one of the key pieces of work that we're very recently been talking about is how we can make best use of the champions. But if I'm being honest, I don't think we use them as well as we can. And I think they're great advocates because they're across the whole trust, you know, all professions, and are really helping with this work moving forward. So quite a lot of time.
And there's quite a significant increase in the last reporting period of women speak-up cases. Is that within like normal fluctuation of like previous years? Does it normally change that much, or if not, do we have an idea of why?
There is fluctuation month on kind of period by period. I'm not sure I've seen fluctuation as quite as big as this. We have had some specific wards and areas that have had some concerns raised, so multiple people have raised concerns, and that probably increases the numbers, but all linked to the same thing. Yeah. But I see an increase is a good thing in some respects. People are raising concerns with us, and I know we've had conversations previously about whether people have fear of raising concerns, but this report doesn't indicate that that's the case. But I think it's what to keep an eye on, Rachel.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks. Do we have any information about other organizations and what kind of things are the speaker issues? Sometimes we know that there are sectors which might have particular issues, and there's something which people all know together, so I don't know what about that.
I think the key one that I talked to but with my peers is around the policies and procedures element, and people going through disciplinary grievances and then visiting the guardians. That's the key one that we would tend to talk about. I'm not aware in terms of safety or any other issue, but I can certainly pick it up with the guardians and see if they've done any analysis on that.
I think the point has been made, just to nail the point, we encourage people to raise concerns, we celebrate that. We want people to have confidence in what then happens in terms of them being supported, and hopefully the improvement activities will take place on the back of them raising concerns. So actually going back to Lynn's point, you could, I think, from a large organisation, and some organisations would be worried if there was a big increase in the number of concerns. And I think it is something to use your phrase that we should all keep an eye on, because it could be that there's a pattern of behaviour or issues that are similar that are coming out throughout the organisation that needs to be dealt with. But I think on balance, people reporting with us and raising those concerns and having that confidence to be able to do that is a positive thing. And we should celebrate and fully support people who do that. So, okay, and move us on to 4.5, which is the staff survey. Is that Kim?
Yeah. I'll move to
While Kim's moving to the front, I think with the technology, we're able to project onto the screen. So I know it's in the packs for the board members. So I know we normally just look at the screen, but we're not able to today.
So thank you very much. I'm going to just run through the summary of the results from the 2023 staff survey. It's actually based on the previous two items. Feels like it fits quite nicely, and you might see that as we go through some of the results. So for those that don't know me, I know I introduced myself at the beginning, but I'm Kim Carter, I'm the acting head of workforce development. So I'm just going to start off by looking at some of the national context. So the national headlines, the response rate nationally this year was up 48% from 46% in the previous year, and 94% of the responses in 2023 were online. The reason for that, feedback around some of that is due to the results being instant. So everybody always knows where their response rates are at an instant and not waiting for paper returns and costs, because it's cheaper to deliver it fully online. There were an increase of people saying that they would recommend their organisation as a place to work, but it does remain below the levels reported in 2019 and 2020. So if you think back to the time in 2019 and 2020, it was pre-pandemic during the pandemic, so interesting that it's still right there. There are an increase of staff who say they are satisfied with their pay, but again, there's a national context sitting behind that, so I shall be aware there's been industrial action, there's been a national uplift, so it might be something that we would have expected to see anyway. There is an increase say that they receive the respect that they would like from their colleagues at work. And again, it remains its highest among staff within mental health and learning disability trusts, who are our benchmark group. There is an increase in satisfaction for flexible working, and again, amongst the benchmark group of mental health and learning disability group of trusts, that remains the highest. And again, there is an improving score of staff who say they think about leaving their organisation. It was at its highest in 2020, which again is during the pandemic, which is really interesting. When staff said they would not think about leaving the organisation, I'm sure there's probably a number of reasons that sit behind that score. So for those that can see the slides, if we just move on to the next slide, you'll see that as with many of the national people metrics, they theme them by the people promise themes, and it is becoming a national tool for reporting those themes across all the people promise metrics, across all the people metrics. So nationally, there has been improvements in 5 of the 8 key indicators, including recognition and reward, which again is possibly linked to the national pay picture. We are always learning, we work flexibly, and teamwork. And the people promise indicators for compassionate and inclusive leadership and whether staff have a voice that count have remained stable across the national picture. What you will see from that, the table that you're looking at, is mental health and learning disabilities group. Again, our benchmark average group is above average in all areas of the people promise themes. So if we just move on to think about CNTW headlines. So our response rate for the 2023 survey was 41%, which was a decrease of 6% on the previous year. The PICA average for similar organisations, so again, it's that benchmark group mental health and LD trust, was 52%. So we are below the benchmark average for our group. This was our first fully online survey. In previous years, we have delivered a mixed mode survey. So we've done online for our community staff and paper copies for our inpatient staff. In terms of the dates, the survey opened on the 21st of September and closed on the 24th of November 2023. So there was an 8-week period for staff to be able to respond to that survey. In terms of how we promoted the survey, it was via a range of methods. So we used all staff emails, we used our social media channels, and we used bespoke messages to really promote the survey and ensure that staff felt that they had a voice. Moving on to the next slide, relating to the former friends and family test result scores. So there was a decrease in staff saying that they would recommend the organisation as a place to work, and that went from 63% down to 63% from 65.1% in 2021. The question, if a friend or relative needed treatment in the standard of care, would you be happy with the standard of care remain static? And there has been an increase in staff feeling that there is enough staff at the organisation to do their job properly in the 2023 results. So again, moving on to the next slide, the trust results are published in the same way as the national results are in terms of those people promise themes. So the People Promise table shows us that the trust has performed above benchmark average in 5 of the 7 areas. The 2 areas where we didn't perform above benchmark average were staff engagement and we are a team. Our highest score as an organisation was we are compassionate and inclusive, which was the same as our 2022 results. Our closest benchmark highest scores were we are a team and we each have a voice that counts. We did see a decrease in both our staff engagement score and our staff morale score, which again you'll see on the table were marginal, but it still showed a decrease. But I think given the previous 2 items that we've spoken about, I think come on, there's a lot of work that's gone in behind these studies as well. So in terms of the areas of concern for CNTW, there was a decrease in 5 particular areas in our 2022 results. Now, interestingly, the 2023 decrease results were our 2022 highest results, so it did have the furthest to fall. But they were around staff feeling able to speak up, staff feeling treated fairly where they've been involved in error, near missing incidents, opportunities for career development, teams having enough freedom of how to do their work, and the organisation taking positive action on their health and wellbeing. So I suppose in summary, across those themes, our results could suggest that there is a decline in staff's confidence to speak up, and there is a decline in staff feeling satisfied with the level of career opportunities at CNTW. But again, thinking back to what we've just heard about how staff are speaking up through the Freedom to Speak Up route, the staff survey results kind of go against that trend a little bit, but it is just a decline score and not a worse score. In terms of the areas we've improved upon, we are close to benchmark average on all elements of the People Promise scores, even if we are slightly below in 2 areas. But we have seen an increase in staff being satisfied with their level of pay, but again, that could be against some of the national context and what we've seen happening across the country. There is staff who feel that physical violence in patients has reduced, and it does remain static in terms of staff experience physical violence from their manager and from their colleagues. Those percentages do appear in every staff survey, but they're so small that we're unable to pinpoint exactly where those areas might be. There is an increased view that there are enough staff at the organisation to enable staff to do their job properly, which has also seen the result in that staff feel like they work less paid and unpaid overtime. And appraisal support and job improvement have also seen an increase for CNTW. So in terms of the CNTW top 5 scores, just moving on to the next slide. What you will see there is staff have seen that they have experienced less harassment, bullying and abuse, that staff have reported less experience of physical violence, that the organisation ensures errors, near misses and incidents do not repeat, that the organisation acts fairly on career progression, and the organisation acts on concerns raised by patients and service users, and the scores are there on the slide for everybody to have a look at. And if we just look at our bottom scores, it's team has enough freedom how to do its work, staff involved in an error, near miss incident treated fairly, not experienced physical violence for patient service users, satisfied with the extent the organisation values my work, and time often passes quickly when I'm working. So on the previous slide, it was suggested that staff reported their experience of near misses, but it could be argued that on this slide, staff are saying that they're not happy with the follow-up or the fact that they don't feel treated fairly with the follow-up. So just moving on to the next slide, bearing in mind everything that we've already heard, there is a lot of work already underway to support some of these things that we're hearing. So in particular, we've got the kindness and respect the value. We've done a lot of work around our culture, peace, just culture coming in. Lynn's already talked about the freedom to speak up in the Raising Concerns report. We're doing a refresh of the grievance process to look at it being more of a resolution process and a resolution policy. We've heard a lot about the res and des and the EDI review, and there's a lot of work ongoing at the moment across the ESR project, which will really give us some good data to be able to triangulate some of the benefits that are coming out of our staff survey. There was also work ongoing around the continued communication that staff from previous surveys as staff surveys as well as quarterly staff surveys. So we're trying to thread it through everything that we do and all the messages that we put out, so to continuously loop back to our staff. If I pick up on particular as well in terms of the launch of the new staff survey dashboard to ensure the transparency of results, we launched our first dashboard, which is accessible across the trust on the internet, following the 2023 results, and there will be further iterations for future surveys so that we can really get that right. And there's also been a review of the appraisal policy to support the embedding of the with you in mind values, which also feeds into the ESR project, and we can get some really good data out about some of those help people find their appraisals. Just moving on to the next slide, 2023 saw the first bank survey. So our staff and solutions undertook the survey, and the areas of feedback are there in the slide for people to see. It has drawn up a couple of areas of focus, so difference in work experience for registered and unregistered workers for staff and solutions, the perceived lack of development opportunities for workers within staff and solutions, and the continued work around experience for being workers in staff and solutions. Key aims for the year ahead. I'm going to hand over to Lynn to talk us through the slide.
Thank you. So Kim has discussed some of the things that we have already started or ongoing in terms of looking at how we can progress some of these areas. But one of our key aims this year is to our approach to engagement generally, but also in line with the staff survey. We want ownership of the survey at local level. We want ownership of the results at local level rather than being corporate and trust-led. We're also keen to explore the areas which mean most to staff and the areas identified, people to make decisions, treating staff fairly, experience of physical violence, feeling valued by the organisation, and support from line managers are areas we absolutely want to see improvements in. And I guess a question for the board, but also be a question for our Trust Leadership Forum, are there any other key areas we want to improve?
Thank you. Both I've certainly got a couple of questions, comments, but I'll open up first of all to board members. Any questions, comments?
Mine was just a comment. Obviously, Kim has presented the trust-wide results. What we have seen, and it's not detailed much in the presentation, is we know we've still got work to do on some of our staffing areas. So, for example, our country diverse staff and our disabled staff, in terms of their experience, it's not always as positive as it is for others. So it's something that, again, we pick up as part of our ADI work, but is high on the agenda, even though it's not really discussed as part of your presentation today.
That might be something that we will find in the years of the year ahead in terms of particular areas of improvement. But for me, there's a couple of, I guess, headline comments on this. So you look at one level itself, we're above average on 5 out of the 7. That's good, isn't it? But there are some things we've really got to work on here. I think the level of response is 40%. Just got to change that. I think that itself is a really worrying thing for me. Now, we did change and we did do just online. So is that part of the picture? One of the other parts of the picture? I think the big thing for me, and we've got to get this through every level of the organisation, is why it's important and what do we do about it? And the ownership of what we do about it needs to go across the organisation as well, rather than being something that's top down. So those are some of the big things that I think we've really got to pick out. And then what we picked about in some of those areas that we've really got to improve on. But things like having a significant drop in freedom to make decisions. You know, there's all sorts of things that go in around in the financial environment. But the freedom to make decisions is really important, and that's something we need to shift the dialogue. As is the feeling that staff and freedoms are treated fairly in response to incidents. All of those two are really fundamental in that to get those. So I think what Lynn's what the team have picked out there in terms of the key areas that we want to see improvement in staff there, I think they're really important. I think probably what that issue of diversity, I want you to make this you see a big response. It was one of the big part of the staff there.
And I think I'm just leading on from a question I wanted to just say as well there, in terms of it's just about the metrics, about, you know, who's actually sort of taking part in the survey as well, and this essentially as well, just recognising in terms of digital literacy skills in communities as well, and also exclusion as well, and understanding, you know, even sometimes what the questions are asking as well, and we think that's really important as well. So I just sort of getting that confidence as well, and maybe, you know, I guess that's some things that I think we've had a conversation about it as well. Yeah, I mean, about everything's going online. Yeah, but equally there's people that just don't really sort of engage online as well. And if you have older members of staff as well, that might be going, well, I'd rather not. I'd rather just sit down with someone and go through. So I think that's important as well. Maybe a sort of wider approach as well, and maybe to get those surveys back up as well, and ensure that there's diversity voices as well. But we'll get the conversation on that as well.
Most hands up, move back out. Objection,
thanks, Lynn. I think your question was about the key areas and the areas which are the big bumps. But I was just thinking about where the approach could be, and I know it's already part of what you're trying to do, but if our approach is to try the work we're doing in the leadership programs, various things around the cultural work, is to have a workforce which is valuable, which is always learning, looking at their well-being, work-life balance, and then looking at the diversity, protected characteristics, and disability. So if that was the underpinning bit of what we did, then some of the key areas, for example, experience of physical violence, might be a focused area in certain services. Because otherwise what might happen is that we might use a lot of these key areas which might have more relevance in some services than underpinning it are aspects of the people's cultural listening, which we are taking through a leadership program, cultural. I just think whether we might want to just reframe that as to our approach to what we've learned from the staff survey, that it becomes a consistent approach towards all and specific actions and towards certain areas.
Forward.
First of all, I must apologise. I appeared to have a bit of a preach on you. I'm so sorry I left the room twice. That was very rude, but I thought you best know. It's an observation more than anything, Lynn. I think that the responses from the bank staff are actually quite encouraging, because that group of staff can often be the ones that feel really isolated and not seen or heard. So that they're really encouraging them.
Yeah, well, I would read it slightly differently in terms of essentially that most staff want to be here in the North, don't change.
And though it is interesting, we haven't got the national comparison of the bank staff, but nationally the bank staff say it was pretty good. The responses were pretty good. So this what did go against the trend in terms of that. So maybe that's just another one of the comparison that we probably need to put forward.
That's just a couple of points for clarity, and then a couple of comments, if I may. Just on the slides, in terms of the people who would recommend the organisations. I think on the slide, the first slide, it's talking about 61%, but then from later it talks about decreasing to 63%. Am I misreading that?
So the first slide is national. So nationally, there's 61% of staff. And then if you go to the CNTW slide, it's 63% of staff. So there's the national and the CNTW figure.
That's fine. No, that clarifies it for me. Thank you. Well, I think the sort of overall for me is how good it is that CNTW as an organisation is taking the staff survey as seriously as it is. And the commitment to it, and the commitment to learn from it, and the commitment to improve from it. That's not the same in all organisations. So I think that's a real positive. I also like the desire to up the activity more at a local level than a board level, but albeit, but obviously while we will be a corporate responsibility and the corporate responsibility required. But I think the more we localise the things that come out of staff survey, the better in terms of action getting done. Because I think if you ask me what are the two things that my eyes are drawn to when I look at a staff survey, particularly this one, number one is the percentage of people who complete it. That tells you something about the engagement of people in the organisation and their desire as part of the organisation to own it and to be part of it and to improve it. Now, accepting that there may be a technical issue that we've split across here to purely being online that may have affected that. But I very much think that the percentage completion of the staff survey should be a key feature for CNTW and getting that up to where it is at the moment. I don't think it's an acceptable level at the moment, well below where we'd expect to be. So that by whatever means we need to do to support our staff to fill in the staff survey needs to be a key objective for us, given the lot different ways of doing that. The second one for me, the one that stands out for me is the one that's reported nationally, is whether people would recommend CNTW as a great place to work. It's stated as our strategic ambition, and therefore that ought to be the one. And I think all the other bits around whether people are treated fairly, whether the freedom to make decisions, how we're approaching around diversity, I think all make up to, would you recommend this place as a good place to work? And that's the one that I think we ought to be trying to address through all of the other aspects. So through all the individual building blocks should build us towards that one. So that's where my eyes are drawn to. Jim.
And just so that bit around the actual percentage of people responding and being a good gauge in itself, I absolutely 100% agree on that. And 40% agree isn't acceptable. And if there are technical issues, then we've got to solve those technical issues. Like I've done it, we use technical issues and fixings. So we just got to solve that and make sure that we get that right. The one thing I'd say about this, and everyone knows this, is what I want to is performance managers and saying you've got to do it, because if that's the route we're going to do, then people are filling in for all the wrong reasons. And actually, it wouldn't be a good gauge of anything. But what we do need to do is do some real work over the next coming months around hearts and minds with teams and managers across the trust as to why is this important and what are we going to do about it? Why is it important to us? So that's, I think that's really important in advance of the next survey.
No, I 100% agree that I think in terms of performance managing it in the context of individuals being performance managed for the house is entirely the wrong approach. It needs to be that people feel part and want to be part of the organisation and want to make a difference to it and feel that the staff survey will make a difference to that. I think the performance management aspect of it is a leadership performance, because then you have to ask the question, so how successful were leaders in winning those hearts and minds and getting people to fill out the survey? So I think there is a performance aspect to it, but absolutely not with individuals to fill it out.
It's a fine line. I think there's definitely an accountability. I think there is definitely accountability. It's how we go about that, because you can have all sorts of things that why you don't think it's going down, like just cutting down the organisation. If managers feel under pressure to get their levels of delivery on compliance up, then the natural tendency is that eventually put that down with the staff and say, so fill it in. But I do think we need to come back and we need to be looking at saying, so we're all accountable for doing this. So why didn't we deliver on it? So, and that's going to be a message we'll have an open conversation about, because the key thing is this is really important. That's the message we've got to get across this important for the right reasons.
And I think, as I say, that if the confidence that people should take, certainly when we've got to everyone should remember that popular the numbers will grow as we move forward with the online stream, is that translation from those people that did fill the initiative to this conversation and the activity depends on some of the direct correlation. That should be reflected in people's. Okay. Thanks, Ken. Thank you.
Chair, one other thing which is all kind of related as well. I think, because obviously, I think there's lots of acronyms, especially the acronym BME, right? There's lots of debate at the moment that's becoming more and more outdated as an acronym as well. And in the absence of anything which is suitable, I think even in terms of sort of local government, I think they're going for minority ethnic as a sort of as a catch-all at the minute. Might be perfect, but we can't sort of also then list all the different ethnics as well. But I guess maybe going forward as well, we might sort of look at that as well. Yeah.
At the minute, that's the national B. It's not even, it's BME, but then that we put on a lot of things. So even on the workforce reasonable quality standard, then yeah, right. I think there's not if it's awful, it's an awful too. But I don't think nationally we've done anything that's better than horrible. We certainly do it locally in ours, but that's what we complete based on the templates that we get from national.
Yeah, right. Right.
Yeah, I'm going to move us on to 4.6 under the same section, which is the integrated performance report, which is the section around people. Comment that I'll probably highlight that we did this morning in the cluster, but any other comments or questions you can go on this? I mean, I do think you should note that when it comes to the people section of the integrated performance report, that all of the measures, all of the things that we're looking at are red in our integrated performance report around sickness, training, compliance, appraisal rate, and clinical supervision. And I think that goes back to speaking to some of the things we've just been talking about, people feeling valued, feeling part of the organisation, and being wound within and supported by the processes and the leadership that we're offering. At the moment, some of those things are off. We need to improve them. I know the people community have got that well within their sights, but I think given that this is the first time we've streamed online, I think it's really important that. But happy to sort of take any back on question on that.
No, I think that's a fair point. I think what I would like to raise that has, I know we've already still, but we have seen improvement in quite a lot of the areas. What I was going to raise was because of the training review, the dashboards haven't quite got to where they need to be. But if you look at page 19 of that document, the IPR report, you will see of what is now 22, I think, measured metrics in training. Everyone has seen an improvement and some quite significant improvement, and working very closely to the trajectory that we've set. So I know there's a huge amount of work to do, but I guess it's raising that. Hopefully, by the time we get the dashboards and the reports synchronized next time, we'll see some differences in some of those areas, training being.
That's a good. I'm glad to come back, and I think that's a really important. It is about trajectory rather than just colours on a piece of paper. So it's some positive direction. Okay, I'm going to move on to section 5, which is our strategic ambition number 4, which is being sustainable for the long term, innovating every day. And we start with our finance report from Kev Scott.
Thank you, Chair. So the report is fairly self-explanatory, but I'll pull out the highlights from it. So at the end of month 1, we are in line with our submitted financial plan, which we'll talk about in the next item. That means we generated £2.5 million deficits at the end of the first month of the year. You'll note under graph 1 the shape of how we were expected to perform this year and the significant uptick in benefits we're expected to see in month 12. That's really associated with non-recurring items such as asset sales we'd expect to recognise at that point in time. So that's how we expect to deliver the plan over the rest of the year. There's some good news in month 1 is that we've seen agency costs reduced back below £1 million a month again, after a slight blip at month 12 last year. So that's really good news. That remains under our agency limit, and it's obviously great news from a financial and a quality perspective, as we've talked about in previous meetings. Capital programme is expected to have some pressure on it this year, albeit in the first month of the year we're slightly below where we expected to spend in terms of capital expenditure. We do think that will some significant pressure as we move through the year because of various developments we've agreed. In terms of cash position, that's just a little bit behind where we expected it to be, but broadly not too far away from the plan. And we do expect to see cash balances reduce through the year, predominantly because of the way that we're delivering our plan and the fact that we have some deficit that we expect to deliver at the end of the financial year, which we'll talk to on the next slide. So happy to take more questions.
Thanks, Kev. We're very early into this financial year, but we can see some of the pressures that exist and that are urgent. So any questions or comments on the financial report at this stage? No? Okay, so moves on to the annual plan. Stephen, yourself again.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So the paper you have in review basically summarises several aspects of our annual planning. So the financial plan is outlined in some detail within the paper. We have also included in there the workforce trajectories and activity trajectories, which govern other parts of the annual plan from a numbers perspective. And in the appendix, we've got the annual plan priorities, which should be through various governance groups within the trust. Just some highlights from the report then. So we have submitted a deficit plan this year, £3.9 million. That is after having agreed to deliver quite a challenging efficiency target, which will be a theme of our reporting this year, no doubt. A couple of key risks around that are managing to deliver some of the plans that we've got in place at the moment, as well as allocating some of those efficiencies out, which we really don't have a plan for this third point in the year. Capital has been submitted as a compliant plan, but we know that there are some pressures on that, which I referred to in the previous report, and we do expect to see capital levels fall through this year as a result of how we're delivering the plan in terms of there being some non-recurring technical benefits we're expecting to take. Workforce and activity trajectories are outlined in table 7 and 8, which are there for review. And appendix 1 shows the annual plan priorities that we've agreed after some quite extensive and comprehensive engagement with our leadership community within the Trust Leadership Forum, which was established last year and was quite successful in terms of securing engagement across our leaders within the Trust. And happy to take any questions about that, Chair.
I know we've the annual plan's been discussed a few times, but it's the first time it's been discussed in public. Any questions or comments?
I guess I was just wondering, because as you just said there, Kev, we've identified that breaking even is a trust-wide priority, but we've also identified that it's not likely that we're going to achieve that. So if we set it as a priority knowing that we might fail, or are we setting it as a priority hoping to pull through?
So our priority is to be sustainable, and we did agree earlier on in the year to submit a break-even plan. I think once we've worked through the detail of what that plan looks like and the challenge it makes of us, the final plan that's been submitted to England as up to deficit now. We are going through the final stages of the planning rounds currently. Interesting that we have to more resource from that to enable us to get to a break-even position. But as it stands at this point in time, it's still
Okay.
so yeah, the two things are not quite consistent. And the strategic ambition that we really need to be aiming for is to have a current balance. So that might be a multi-year task, and that's part of our priority for the current year to plot a chart through that over.
Okay.
My take on this, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, is what we presented is an honest, professional assessment of where we think we're at in terms of with that deficit. But that doesn't lessen our desire and our ambition to bridge that gap, and that's what we need to work on over the course of the year. But if we'd have presented a break-even plan, that wouldn't have necessarily been, well, it wouldn't have been an honest plan, because we actually think that at this moment in time we've got that deficit. And so certainly the bad discussion with James and others, our willing is to present the most honest plan, which is including the curriculum gap. But that doesn't lessen our ambition to close that gap.
But I guess the key elements of that, which that we talked us through before, is that this isn't say a financial plan on a spreadsheet. So it's not Gabe's plan, it's our plan, and it's got to be seen alongside, or actually it's got to be seen within our fully deliverables, and that's the key thing for us that we're looking at this from what we need to do when finances are constrained. And we had a long debate around that, we could have get booked on wages, so right, we should get the break even, but how do you actually deliver that, and how do you deliver that, how do you deliver that safely? There is a lot of debate going on nationally, and some of you may have seen it. There's some really confusing messages coming out, and there's some really confusing messages coming out around mental health, the status of mental health and how to protect it. And I think that's really unhelpful. And I've said that that's really unhelpful because there are messages coming out that the mental health workforce is protected. And I'm seeing mental health organisations saying that they're running out cost improvement programs of 6, 7, 8%. You can't protect the mental health workforce and not reduce the mental health workforce, given it's 80% of our costs. So there's just some really confused messaging out there. I think what is happening is a strong attempt to protect the mental health investment standard. How that then plays through the organisations is a different thing, but how that plays into the fact that the NHS as a whole has increased its staffing more than its funding over the last 3 years. It's a whole of things, so there's lots of confusion in there. I think we just need to be true to ourselves and set a plan that we can deliver, set a plan that is coherent, where our quality, our workforce and our finance all talk to each other. So that's all we're trying to do.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's fair to say that the services have got to be delivered, and the money shouldn't necessarily be the thing that restricts being able to deliver the services and care that you need to give. Whilst being extremely mindful that you've got to do that in a very responsible, measured, managed way. But the reality is that in our current climate, with demand completely outstripping capacity and resource not being sufficient to provide for that, it is difficult to come to a balanced budget, but it goes without saying that that is managed very, very carefully outside of both board and RABA. We meet additionally, myself, Care Director of Finance, and David as Chair of Audit on a regular basis, and then we'll on an ad hoc basis where necessary, often at short notice, meet additionally again. So it is potentially a risk, but it is a risk that is very high on the agenda and gets significant money.
Yeah. But it's about the plan of the whole. I'm just wondering if there's like double standard, because we're saying that our aim priority is to break even financially, but we know we might not do that. But then if we were reluctant to have as an aim to reduce it straight to zero, because we know we can't do that.
Okay, Chair.
So I don't think we're so the point may be called right. So I don't think we should say it's not our aim. So we should have clear aims and ambitions. It is absolutely our aim to deliver and actually it's a requirement. So it's actually a legal requirement for an NHS Foundation Trust to do that as well. So we have got to do that, and we have got to reach sustainability. So we have to have that. We have to have that clear also. Certainly, the medium term to get to a fully sustainable position. I think the point I made earlier, what are our ambitions? Absolutely, should be very clear what our ambitions are as well.
Yeah. I don't think the both are dissimilar or actually take a different view. So, for example, the financial stuff, what we're trying to say is that we're going to try our best. Yeah, we've been fair, so we might have a deficit. We try our best to make it. But take the restraint example. I think we need to have an ambition, which will be say, okay, with certain areas we're going to try to eradicate it, and we're going to try our best. Just with the finance, we try our best, but we won't compromise quality. Yes. And that means we might not sometimes get it's how we do it. Yes. Similarly with restraint, we will really try our best to do, but not at the cost of causing harm, yes. Significant harm to even one person, which is what happens in other organizations around us when some people have suddenly lost their life. So we will not do that. We do it. We will have that ambition, but we'll take all the aspects in consideration and do our best. I think that's both the concept.
Yeah, so I think the arguments are nuanced out there around both aspects of it, in terms of. But I think you're right to draw the parallels around patient care, and I think you're right to put the challenge in that. But I don't see that that's actually what we're doing. I think the ambitions are there, how we achieve them, and doing that in a fair and balanced way, and moving them forward. We might not achieve both at the same time, but having the ambition of zero restraints and also achieving a balanced budget. That's the right ambition standard.
But the ambition of zero restraint isn't in the annual plan.
It isn't in this year's annual plan, correct. Because I think at the moment what we're saying is we're moving towards reducing it. But I think that's something as a board, you're raising as a challenge now. I think it's something we should continue challenging ourselves on. And as we move towards that, I think it's something that we like to improve in future years. But I think what I don't want to do at the same time, to James is cheaply think what I want to move forward to do is put the organisation in a position where the target, if you like, can compare costs and reverse outcomes as we've just been talking about.
Yes.
Certainly is an
And we haven't got an annual plan really. It isn't in our annual plan, it's in our annual plan at the deficit of 3.9.
Okay.
So that's so that is the reality. We have an annual plan to get deficit 3.9 million. We have an ambition to get to long-term sustainability. So as Jeff said, and it's seems to be the same prism. How do you meet all of our challenges with the core prism of quality, safety, and
It's a great question. It's a great question. So thank you. Okay, I'm going to move us on to 5.3, integrated performance report. Anything to add to the report from what we've talked about?
Nothing to add, thanks.
Any questions from anybody in relation to the performance report in the context of sustainability? And then 5.4, wrap-up report, Paul, anything that's additional to what's in the report?
No, and I think the majority of what I ordinarily would have said, actually Kev's already covered in his finance update. What I would possibly bring some attention to is the really good work that the digital audio some good projects underway. 111, and also 111 has gone live. Will need to be reviewed and looked at. The ICB have formed a digital partnership and they have now had their first meeting. Our electronic prescribing that we have in our inpatient and hospitals is going to be rolled out to community initially to addiction services. In terms of our assurance and compliance with regards to digital PSPT, the data security protection toolkit is on track, and our cyber security have been approved with various access layering and limited time of access to that in order to strengthen that. And our backup systems in place have been approved. A recent audit of which provided no recommendations whatsoever, which is most unusual. So a lot of great work going on digital.
I think members of the public have been keeping an eye on the media this week will be particularly heartened by the work that's going on around cyber security and some of the other NHS experiences just this week concerning the service that the big badly affected by it. So that's good to hear. Thank you. We'll move on to section 6 of the agenda, which is around our strategic ambition 5, which is working for and with our communities. So James, consider the system working.
Yes, I was going to have a report for this meeting, and we're going to do a report on the system approach, and we're going to talk about the system, the integrated care system, so come to North Cumbria to mental health, learning disability, and autistic needs, and that was going to include a review of our priorities going forward. Unfortunately, with the election being called, that was due to go to the ICB early in this week, I think. But we were unable to go ahead with that. That's what's all. It's not hoping to have a discussion here either. So what I will do is I'll bring that on future board. So in the light of that, I haven't got particularly in addition to that. Apart from that, there's a huge amount of work that is going on to try and work through all of the issues that Kev's been talking about to get a plan finalised. It's not ideal that we're in June and we still haven't got a collective plan. I hope we'll go to the NHS, but that is something that hopefully will be bringing to a close in the next couple of weeks.
That's how many services probably get through this and a few other items on the agenda around that. I mentioned Pertra at the beginning of the sort of difficult reasons that are going on. And prior to general election, on movers on, if there's no question for James, it's in 6.2. Charitable funds is actually down the weeds on the agenda, but I'm assuming it's the case.
I guess it's seen as read in the report, but just to add, I guess, working strategically and across other charities chairs network to sort of identify joint working. At the minute, we're sort of developing it in terms of reference, and we'll report back on that as well. Again, there's some great work done by staff members and teams, and I guess the marketing officer and apprenticeship course have been really impactful as part of the charities community and the work that they're doing. So we're going to have conversations and look at how to sustain that role, because it builds capacity within the organisation and the work that we want to do, and also looking future forward as well. And you know, there's some great funds that have been given out, and I guess we'll continuously looking at ways how that's creating well-being and that impact on carers and patients as well. And there's really some positive stuff that's coming out of that. Some really great stuff that's coming out in the future, which we'll sort of talk about, including, you know, the Great North Run. There's also, I guess, part of the marketing officer's role as well. They've been able to, and also the team's role is they've been able to reach out and look for further sort of sponsorship and support around, you know, Stagecoach in Cumbria. I think there's, advertising across their buses as well. That's great, you know, that's in-kind support, so that actually elevates the Shine Fund as well, and that's great. And if you look around different sites, we've got some beautiful, fantastic, colourful new signage around that as well. And so yeah, it's all very positive. So yeah, it's hoping that there's, yeah. So has anyone got any more questions? I'm happy to take them.
Any questions on the show? Very much. Thanks, Lucas. In which case, I'm going to move us on now to section 7, which is the governance and regulatory section of the agenda, which is the first item is the audit committee assurance report. We've normally to begin with Arthur as the chair, but in his absence,
just a couple of things down. So very busy audit committee, team appendix 8, the number of items that we've considered just a few things to highlight. So the committee did do its work in terms of seeking assurance around those areas where we have limited assurance and audit reports. Due to candidate inductions, we got some updates on action plans associated with that. The audit committee also received the annual report, the annual reporting associated with the year end, where the trust has, at least in the draft annual accounts, met its financial obligations and met its plan for last year, and we received the draft head of internal audit opinion from Audit One, which was raised for good assurances for the views in terms of our assurance overall for our internal control processing. That's it.
Questions or comments around the audit? Okay. 7.2, fit and proper persons declarations of interest. Sorry, fit and proper persons / declarations of interest.
Thank you. I'm picking this up on behalf of Debbie. So there's been statutory obligation since 2019 for NHS provider organisations to ensure checks are carried out on an annual basis on the directors to ensure that they're deemed to be fit and proper for the roles they undertake. The report gives a lot of detail on that and includes also the additional requirements which were implemented last year. We've undertaken the process for all board members, including the Director of Communications and Corporate Affairs, as a non-voting member of the board and deputies. And again, the detail is provided in the report. The outcome of all checks have been reviewed by the Director of Comms and Corporate Affairs and the Chair, including the new requirements. So again, they're included in the report. Additionally, DBS checks are now required to be conducted at least every 3 years, and we've undertaken a review of the board declaration as well, which will be published on the Trust website. So in summary, all the relevant checks that were needed to undertake as part of fit and proper person have been undertaken, and there are no issues to note.
Well done, everyone, you passed.
And also, Debbie was really keen on me just thanking Kirsty for her role in this, because I know there's been huge additional requirements in terms of fit and proper person, and Kirsty's held the ring on this, and it's been a huge piece of work, so well done.
Kirsty. Thank you. 7.3 participatory statement, James.
Yeah, and so this is a requirement for us to make a statement in the Modern Slavery Act. It speaks for itself, and we'll also go through it. I'm happy to take any questions.
Absolutely, I've read it, absolutely support it, so I don't think it's what we need to have additional questions or comments. Okay, and then 7.4, I'm just going to take by anything for exception really around the, in terms of reference for approval for the Quality and Performance Committee at 7.4.1, the People Committee at 7.4.2, and the Audit Committee at 7.3.3 in terms of those revised, renewed, updated in terms of reference to those committees. Anything anyone wants to raise and or the chairs would want to highlight? No, okay, thank you. And then we're at the board assurance framework at 7.5, which was down to Sarah. Sarah said, thank you. Apologies to case
I'm happy to take that one up, Chair. Thank you. So this is the quarter 4 update report around the BAF. Just a couple of things to pick out. We have done quite a thorough review of where we sit with the BAF strategic risks at the board committees. I think that remains an ongoing process for us to make sure that they do reflect the areas of more significant risk. You will also see in the report that we have tried to join together some of the corporate risks coming up from the organisation as well, and how they link into each of the strategic risk areas on the BAF. Board members will also note that we have completed an internal audit around our assurance mechanisms, and we have received substantial assurance on that from our internal auditors. There's quite a lot of detail in there, Chair, but I'll happily take any comments or queries. Equally, any exec colleagues can pick up their areas as well. Thank you.
Any questions or comments on the board assurance stage? Yes.
I think just a couple of questions for me, which one of the Q&P committee. One is in the Q&P report, which talks about 2512 having a rating of 16, which is the risk of failing to maintain positive safety, patient safety, learning culture. So it should really look to see where that should be reflected in the BAF, as it's not currently. And the other issue, given the level of discussion that we're having about the moment, is the issues and levels of violence against staff, against the whites, what you should talk about earlier about the restrictions, make sure that we get the balance out, because that's a very lively debate at the moment. And I know there's active work going on around that. The organisation probably needs to consider that and keep appeal where that becomes a strategic decisions.
I'm just thinking, do we want to use some of the review work that's going on as the vehicle for that? I'm thinking around because I think I said it's a modern challenge, I think, isn't it, for a mental health trust like CNTW to recognise the risks safety can't satisfy the human. It's a real possible. So I think it is something that you've got to be and what we haven't decided in an earlier session, the closed session, we'll look at the board assurance framework and our next closed session as well. But are you happy to pick those up, Louise, and Ramona on the essential those two? Thank you. Anything else on the bath at this stage? No? In that case, I think that's it. Oh, sorry, Richard.
There was just one reference to the 126 metre ego being temporarily closed because of staffing pressures. Was that under 70 analysts? Has that come to board before?
Respond to that one, yeah. So we have taken an update into board around some of the controls we're putting in place around our UDale award. So they include, we don't have any acute mission having people on the weekend because of the isolation and staffing pressures. And we've also been reviewing the staffing arrangements for the 136 week UDale award because that at the moment is staffed from the not resources. And that's fully in line with the opening of our urgent and emergency care capacity, which will have 2 136 suites fully open on the Hampton site. It's part of our medium-term plan, which we have got here.
I guess, for absolute clarity, I guess the point Rachel was making earlier, in terms of that delegated authority to close water services and then referencing the board, I'm satisfied that around UDale that we've complied with, we've complied with that delegated authority and it's not an issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just make one point, it's the language also when it closed UDale board, we just change the admission. So I think that might be a reflection of how we put information on it. Should be the delegated authority to work on it and see to the board, but we say it possible now.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to take us to any other business. First item on there is my report as chair. Certainly, so this is the second report that's that produced rather than just giving a verbal tip. I think it's been astonishing position. Again, thanks to Kirsty for assisting massively in this and keeping an eye on what I've been doing. And the different activities I've been involved in. I'm not going to go through all of the report in terms of a lot of it covers the kind of things that I've been involved in over the last period. But I think probably 3 things to dwell. One is I think around evaluating the Council of Governors' effectiveness and the piece of work that's going on at the moment around that skill set and where we might have some gaps in terms of skill and knowledge with the Council of Governors. To be an important group of people in terms of the overall governance. And that is ongoing. Then Dave, for that case, in terms of
Not yet. No, not yet. They're still coming in, so no.
Thank you. I think second one that I'm going to draw out of the report is around NED and governor visits. Just I guess emphasising the importance of those together with obviously what the executive do and other leaders within the organisation do, because as we've again in the meeting we've had a discussion around it is dangerous and undesirable to completely rely on governance, i.e. meetings like this, to get a view of the organisation, its services, its people, its patients, and that comprehensive approach that we now have to both government visits and non-direct visits and the feedback that we see from them in terms of things from them, things we've informed. So I'm grateful to colleagues for that. And then actually 2 more. One is the freedom to speak up section. Probably already covered that, but I did want to specifically include it in my report in terms of emphasising the importance of that and the support that is there for people and needs to be there for people to speak up and absolutely encouraging that time. And if we're going to improve it, we're going to be safe, then people need to feel support and free to be able to speak about the issues that are serving. And then the final one that will lead into James and then CEO's report is around collaboration and partnership. And accepting at the moment we're in a bit of a strange position while the election period goes on. But I think there is something for us to do more as an organisation around clarity and understanding of hear what we're already doing around partnership. We're actually doing an awful lot. The more I've dug into this myself, and it's been mentioned once already, the veterans work that we do, and that being a significant collaboration that goes well beyond the North East that CNCW is leading on. And I think we do more than we realise around collaboration and partnership with other organisations already. But I think there is something about us positioning ourselves and having an understanding as a board about, so where do we want to go then? Who do we want to partner with? Who do we want to collaborate with? Why? And actually, they want to partner and collaborate with us right as well. So that's what I piece of work I've asked you to come back to us with for want of a better term, a strategy on that. So, any questions on the chair report?
So a couple of meetings ago, and particularly on the point of visits, Chair, when I first joined, we used to hold our board meetings in locations other than just the next, and I raised that in a meeting a couple of weeks ago. It was said that we looked at to perhaps go back to that. Is anything happened with regards to that?
So there's 2 or 3 points I think to make on that. One is in relation to board meetings in public that have to happen in this room, because it's the only place that supports the technology at this moment in time for the stream, for live streaming. So those 4 meetings that we have every year have to happen here. At the moment, purely from a technology perspective, we have to be in this room. I think the second point for me around having board meetings elsewhere is I'm absolutely open to it. There's got to be a point to it. I think worst case scenario, which I think we may well have done in the past pre-COVID, is as a board we'd all tip up at the location. We'd use all the staff's car parking spaces, and we'd have a board meeting in a room somewhere within that building, and then we'd all disappear at the end of the day again, and actually never met any staff and services, which to me that's just the box and it's pointless. What I am absolutely open to, and we can absolutely explore this, is on when we have only a closed session in the same public meeting. Very happy to go to a different location if there's another added point to it in terms of people going to visit some services or speak to some staff or speak to some patients, or we've got to go and see something that we feel that we need to see as a board. Dead happy to do that, but not just to tick a box. It's in that position. Well, yeah, we can definitely explore it, and I'll have that discussion. Yes, to James, maybe outside the room. And what I would say is, if there's some things that board members, if you have anything in mind, that actually you think it would be useful to have a board meeting at a particular location for a particular purpose, really happy to see that thing.
Just saying, I mean, probably for a public board, it's not only possible, but if you're looking at purpose and working out, one might want to look at is, as we try to hear more people who experience the services, patients, families get sometimes the board being in a different place might assist a particular family or having access to us, which is probably not the easiest always if you're saying next. So you clear your purpose and
if there's a purpose, if there's a point, dead happy, but not just a typical cell, isn't there? Anything else on the chair?
Okay, so I will take what is right. But I do want to highlight a couple of things. One is the Deaf Mental Health Conference, and I won't say much about the conference because the conference describes what it is. I think it's just important that we recognise that the deaf community is probably one of the most disadvantaged communities when it comes to health inequality. So I'm often really overlooked. So I think for us as an organisation, it really is important for us to make sure that we are developing inclusive, accessible services. And it's going to be important as we're doing our work around transformation, community transformation, the work we're doing on patient awards, that we really think about all of our communities and some of those communities which don't have a voice in the deaf community is definitely one of those lives. Big up our house and important work as well. The other thing, and you know, we talked about workforce planning today, and we've got now a social workforce which is as big as most medium-sized local therapies. A lot of them are employed as social workers. So There's a real opportunity there. So we've got people in the organisation, we've got people with skills. If I'm honest, this year we are not using those skills and potentially de-skilling them as well. So there's something, and Sarah will be leading on a bit of work to say, so how do we get that? How do we use that fantastic, I think, that was developed the previous years. So that's a potential real opportunity for us. I'm going to take the rest as read, but I am going to bring attention to the 24/7 community pilot bid in West Cumbria. If you talk about partnerships, and this is a partnership among many organisations in West Cumbria. And I want to bring attention to this time today that we are on first shortlist of shortlists, so we're getting a visit of the national team next week around that. So that is a real opportunity to do something fundamentally different, quite special in one of our most deprived communities. And that's our region. Well, so I'm really excited about that. So that's off the press news. Clearly, we haven't got it. Next time we read on the flu, but we will do everything now to get that over the line next week when they come up with us. But it is, I would say, when you think of partnership, it is a great example of a partnership and very much, a wide range of voluntary community sector organisations involved. Most of which are local, deeply embedded in their work as well. So really special solution.
Well, I mean, my certainly from a personal perspective, I should thought we can support that and continue to get the just let us know. Any questions for James on the chief protection? That case, that gets us to the last item on the agenda, which is a bit of this is one of the downsides potentially of live streaming, because this is the questions from governors and members of the public. And obviously, with the old method, we would have had people online that were able to raise their hands and would be able to see them, but we can't do that. So it's purely people in the room. Any questions or comments from anybody in the room? Right, in that case. I'll bring the meeting. Sorry, is there any other business?
Oh, sorry. One thing I didn't want to mention was that we've had over 1,500 nominations for the staff awards. Wow, that's pretty good. So those who were on the judging panels prepare yourselves for a lot of work, I would say, but that's very positive, and that means we'll have, I'm sure, another very successful event at the end of September.
Okay, so I'm going to bring the meeting to a close. In terms of the live streaming, I'm conscious we can't communicate with people now, but basically I'll be stopping.
No, not right now. Well, will.
Oh no, what I was going to say was, if people are able and want to, I'm very happy to hear. Would it be through you in terms of how was it for you? Did it work? Did they earn for listens and stuff? Which could result in you getting quite a few emails, but maybe not.
Yes,
it'd be useful, I think, to understand from people whether that worked for them and what we're able to see here, and certainly from a meeting management perspective, if they've got anything that they want to